Reactions have continued to trail the presidential election and, of course, the gubernatorial election as well, with different parties coming up with different concerns. And just about 24 hours ago, the Department of State Services, DSS, said it has identified some key players in a plot to call for the establishment of an interim government in Nigeria. The Secret Service made this known in a series of tweets yesterday. It said the plot for an interim government is a mischievous way to set aside the constitution, undermine civil rule, and plunge the country into an avoidable crisis. So today we'll be looking at this issue. Why do we have so much agitation for what seems impossible, especially with the way that the country's democracy has been going before now? In the studios, I have two gentlemen who would be talking about this with me on the show this morning. Mr. Zadok Akintoye is here. Good to have you, sir.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Mr. Richard. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we also have Barrister Femi Omoshiwa. He is a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, Nigerians.
And of course, we'll speak with Barrister Tolu Babaleye, who is as well going to look at this issue from the legal prism. Mr. Adams Abu, a security expert, would also join us on the show this morning so we could have a balanced discourse. So my name is Olabisi Olani Oluwasegun. All right, let's start with this call for an interim government in Nigeria, occasioned by some of the grievances, so to put it, of some parties, especially after the presidential election. Do you think that this is a situation that Nigerians should allow to fly?
Definitely not. I think for a fact we must be very clear about the fact that we have been in a democracy for the last 24 years or thereabout, and so our democracy must be allowed to continue. We have never had a course since 1999 to have had an interim government in place. And I think that those who are calling for this must be reprimanded, they must be corrected. In a democracy, everybody is allowed to express his or her own opinion, but such an opinion must not be allowed to take an autocratic form where it forms it is compelled upon an entire nation as how that nation must think. Nigerians have been democrats. We have had the last 20 plus years to train ourselves away from the military culture, and so those who are calling for this must either be living in the past or they have some ulterior motive to ensure that this democracy fails. I think the call by the DSS is very needful, but I take exception to the DSS being so civil or having been so caged to the point where it is not allowed to act outside of what the courts say. Because I took exception to that press statement. I think the DSS ought to be to be seen to have acted rather than to be preempting it. But they have their reasons for having said that. But by and large, I think that this call is condemnable in its entirety. Those who have lost this election, whether from the Labour Party or PDP side, must understand that there's a sacrifice to pay, of leadership to pay. And though elections might have been lost now, but we need to lead this nation away from crisis, and that is very important.
Okay, there are 6 issues to be noted regarding this call, this continuous agitation for an interim government by some segments of the Nigerian society. And these factors I'd like to highlight this morning so we have a proper understanding of what occasions an interim government and what could happen in the event that is allowed to go through. Some key players have been identified, and these, according to the DSS, happen to be politicians. Most of the planners, according to the DSS, are politicians, and they have had several meetings to this effect. The various options weighed. According to the DSS, those plotting to bring the interim government are weighing various options by which their goal of usurping power, so to speak, can be achieved. And they include sponsoring of endless violent mass protests in major cities as to warrant declaration of state of emergency. Another is to obtain frivolous court injunctions to forestall the inauguration of new executive administration and legislative houses at the federal and state levels. Stakeholders must be watchful. Before we even get to the third point here, as a legal practitioner, is Nigeria, first, why do you think there's so much fuss about the outcome of the presidential election? Despite the pressing for legal redress by the parties involved, especially the Labour Party here, the PDP this morning released a statement saying that anyone who calls for an interim government should be dealt with decisively. APC and PDP PCC, that's the Presidential Campaign Council, jointly made a statement this morning. And why do you think, as a lawyer that you are, that we have so much drama around the presidential election? And why is it that despite pressing for legal redress, some of these agitators are still calling for an interim government in the form of, protests across the cities of the country?
I want to believe the people that are calling for interim national government, it is quite disheartening, and they are treacherous in the sense that when it's as if they don't understand the office they were trying to occupy. I mean, the people who contested for that position. Because when you see a vice presidential candidate of a party that just contested this election, the person of Dati said Dati was warning, and in fact it was a threat. It is a felony. It's treasonable for somebody who has just lost an election, and he knows that there are ingredients that are attached to democracy. And one of the ingredients is, as soon as you contest election and you are dissatisfied, the next thing you need to do is to go to court. You are in court and you are still telling people to be protesting. And in that vein, you are still telling, you are talking to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that they should not risk their life, and even the CJN that they should not risk. So it is treasonable. Such language is treasonable, and it goes to show that they don't even understand what it takes to be president and vice president of a nation like Nigeria. Why did I say this? When you know there are avalanche of opportunities that are there as soon as you are dissatisfied with the outcome of an election, you go to court, and while you are in court, you don't premeditate even the court. That will amount to, prejudicing the court. And for the fact that these people, they are not players. They don't see politics as a game. Because everybody that wants to practice politics must understand that it is like a game. It is either you win or another person win. It is either you lose or another person lose. And as soon as you lose, if you are dissatisfied, you go to court. And you did not stop at even going to court. You are beginning to tell people to be protesting. They have done quite a lot of nonsense thing as far as this election is concerned. And this will make me to conclude that APC as a party, having won election, they went into slumber. What do I mean by this? These people, it's as if they have taken over the space of even the media and everywhere. APC is folding their hands as if maybe they are, these people, they are justified. They are not doing anything to even counter all these people. Because how can somebody tell us that there is even rigging in this election where about 20 governors, incumbent governors, lost their state to the person, to the president-elect? You see the mighty Ganduje, he lost his state. You see the mighty El-Rufai lost his state. The President Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces of the Federation lost his state. The Director General of APC lost his state. The Chairman of the party lost his state. Even the President-elect lost his state. What are we talking about? So if you presume rigging, then we have to ask. You alleges must be able to prove. We saw people that during the collation at the national level, they were there, they were saying, why did you not upload? Why will INEC upload and make mistake? And I will make you to say he has made some mistake, and you can capitalize on that. And we have stories, even the minister for technology, Patami said more than close to 200 times INEC server where they attempted to hack it. And so what are we talking about here?
Okay, the reason a lot of
so these people, they don't understand what politicking is all about. What they want is they just want to contest election under 6 months and they want to win. Where we have the like of Atiku that has been contesting since 1992. He contested against Abiola, MK Abiola. They did convention together in 1992. We see somebody like Bola Ahmed Tinubu that has even produced president, produced vice president, produced governor. And you just want to contest under 6 months. You want to become president of Nigeria and you want to use force to collect power. Power is not served a la carte. You struggle for power, but while struggling for power, you must use your senses.
Okay, and now about a few weeks ago, prior the presidential election, I think, one of the spokespersons for APC, Mr. Fani Kayode, raised an alarm at that time that there were plots by some elements in the country to, call for an interim government, planning to establish an interim national government. At that time, I remember that in the social media space, insults were hurled at him, abusive words and everything. And even the DSS invited him over to their office for questioning. Now that this has been substantiated by the DSS, do you think that Mr. Fani Kayode should be, apologized to in that regard?
Not necessarily. If an apology is tendered to him or otherwise, it won't change anything. But the truth of the matter is that he sent an alarm to indicate to Nigerians that a plan was being made. I think that the DSS calling him at that time to substantiate was to help them to understand who and what. And to also give them the details, the evidence he has. And I'm sure that based on that invitation, they must have gotten some information from or from him, on which they would have then, worked on to confirm their veracity. And for the DSS to come now to tell us that there is actually a plan shows that they've been working. If we go back to the presidential elections itself, you will see that this is one presidential election where the emergence of political parties like the Labour Party challenged the incumbent. But this election was largely campaigned on the basis of religious division and ethnic sentiments. And those two factors cannot be isolated from this call for an interim government. Don't also forget, and I must go back to the press release by His Excellency, former President of the country, Baba Olusegun Obasanjo, when he also did call for the cancellation. The Yorubas will say that Ajekila no mo kulenita mo pe ajetokila no lopo mo to kule. What I'm saying basically is that there has been indications that there are people who are not pleased with the outcome of the presidential elections. And those individuals obviously will gather together to work on if they can truncate this.
At the expense of a national peace?
That's why I'm saying that for me, as an individual and as a citizen of Nigeria, we must go back to ask ourselves, if from 1999 up till date, we have all worked together to ensure that democracy continues. Look at what happened in 2019. Buhari came back into power, not necessarily because the general majority of Nigerians were happy with his first term, but he won that election from whatever means, and Nigerians were willing to accept it. Go back to the election that brought Baba Obasanjo in 2003, his second term. Nigerians were displeased, but we continued with it. You understand? So to ask for, by anybody in Nigeria, that the process of discontinuation of democracy should be truncated is to call for anarchy. And it is condemnable once again for whatever reasons. I must go back to what the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party said, Dr. Ahmed. And maybe he needs to be schooled on what leadership is. You don't make such statements when you're aspiring to lead a country like Nigeria. You don't. You don't make threats in a time when Nigeria is almost at the brink of a conflict. You are expected as leaders to bring in words that helps. How much is 4 years? How long does it take for a 4-year cycle? What I would have expected if they were really interested in leading a united Nigeria, and I'm saying this to the Labour Party, was that, look, you have lost an election, but isolate what exactly does Nigeria need? Is it a new person in power or leadership? If it is leadership, you have been provided with every resource. You have been provided with the opportunity. No political party has done what you have done, what the Labour Party has done. No political party has achieved this kind of immense success in such a short period of time without the alliances of the political
gladiators.
Yes,
but not on
at
that
the micro
scale.
level. Now, if you now look back at it, that means that Nigerians are actually yearning for leadership, not necessarily somebody changing one person in power with the other. So if you understand that, you will know that this is a great opportunity to provide leadership for Nigerians by calling us together. But you can't call us together by asking for division. You can't threaten. He was asked a question, and I must say this. He was asked a question, I think it was by Sheun Okinbaloye, when he was saying that the entire process of the presidential election was faulty and that the results were wrong. And they asked him, the 6 million votes that was gotten by Labour Party, is it fake?
Even in the Southeast, where they have 97%.
That means that you can't validate your own vote. It shows insincerity on his part. And it calls for caution.
Hypocrisy.
It calls for caution. He should learn from what the PDP is doing. The PDP is the major opposition party, but they are much more mature in how they approach this issue of having lost the election. You can't call for what he called for was akin to declaring a state of war. Because you can't be asking that this process should be truncated and threatening the Attorney General of the Federation.
No,
you can't be doing these things. And that underscores the danger. He that comes to equity must come with clean hands. I can't support such a notion because we have had unbroken democracy for 23 or 24 years now. And we must ensure that that democracy does not break. So whatever sacrifices are required at this time, you may not agree with the person who has won the election. I don't agree with the person who has won the election, but that's the person who has won the election. That same person lost in his own state. That same person lost in those places where you would have ordinarily taken it for granted that he will win. The current president of the country lost election in his own state. The chairman of the PDP lost election in his own unit and ward. So this is an election that it's not perfect, but is representative of the yearnings of Nigeria. Okay. You cannot force the agitation of a political party as the yearnings of Nigeria. You can't do that. And you can't say because of the...
That's the perception, especially the Labour Party is
you can't say the momentum that you got, which is fantastic momentum, which shows you that you have a huge proportion of Nigerians who are willing to support you.
I would disagree with that.
But you can't take that energy
now let's look
and use it to say that automatically I didn't vote the Labour Party. I couldn't have voted the Labour Party. I couldn't. So you can't say that's my opinion.
Let's look at the perception the Labour Party is projecting now about the country's electoral process, especially to the international community. Yeah. Do you think this sort of situation is a plus or a minus to national integrity?
Oh, definitely a minus. Definitely a minus. We must ensure. That's why I mentioned the other time about leadership. Those aspiring to lead the country must first understand what leadership is. Leadership is not about winning elections. It's not about always getting the 100%. Leadership is about doing what is right at every point in time to get the majority of Nigerians to live together in peace. Atiku Abubakar has been losing elections. But each time he has lost elections, he has not called for war. He has always gone to court. He has helped the judicial process. You understand? You are coming for the first time. That's the Labour Party. And you are calling almost like what you are doing, what the vice presidential candidate did. It's like calling for war. Let's give you a scenario. If the election was cancelled, does he think that he will be able to become vice president in this country? If an interim government comes, does he think for any reason that somebody will now give them the presidency? you would have created a chaos that you can run away from. Look, beyond him being nominated by Peter Obi as the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, I never knew him. So upon what basis would he be requesting to lead me or to lead my home?
He was once a senator
as a president.
For about 3
I
months.
never knew him. He was a senator in his senatorial district. So
And
when
it
you
was,
come to
it was
lead,
taken away from him.
when you
After
come to
3
lead,
months.
when you
After
come
3
to lead a country like Nigeria, you must know that there's a diversity of opinion, of interest. And so when you call for a cancellation of an election, you are asking that whosoever I voted for in an election, like I am in Ondo State, I vote in Ondo State, and the election in Ondo State cannot be contested by anybody.
But, well, the PDP, the Labour Party is contesting that.
Now, if they contest it, then they should take the evidence to court. It's not to the court of public opinion. It's not to call for crisis. Because you then need to prove that you won in my polling unit. Because you couldn't have won in my polling unit. Because beyond it, the Labour Party does not exist in principle within this state, within Ondo State.
Okay, about 30 years ago, Nigeria had an interim government in place that lasted for about 82 days. According to what we have here, the last time Nigeria had an interim government in power was about 30 years ago, and it lasted for 82 days. Following the 12th June 1993 presidential election, which was won by Mashood Abiola and annulled by General Ibrahim Babangida, there was a crisis after then. After this crisis, it seemed as if it was being controlled by the then military junta, but unfortunately, Babangida handed over to Ernest Shonekan shortly after the whole situation. Right now, we want to get the perspective of a security expert, Mr. Adams Abu, is trying to get across to us. Let's see if we can get him any moment now so we can hear from him to even find out in the first place if Nigeria is in a situation that could warrant the establishment of an interim government to start with. And in a case where the DSS has, cried out, so to speak, raised this kind of alarm that some people somewhere are working to disrupt the peace that we enjoy as a nation, what should be done? What should be the next line of action? Mr. Adams Abu will be joining us on the show right now. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Abu. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's good to have you join us on the show.
It's my pleasure to be with you this morning.
Okay, thank you. Can you kindly turn down the volume on your radio before we go ahead?
All right.
Good. Thank you very much. So we've been discussing the call for an interim national government, a provisional government, so to speak, that some people have been agitating for. As a security expert, do you think, given the situation of the country right now, does it warrant the call for an interim government, first off?
Oh, thank you very much. First, let me comment the DSS. I want to comment the DSS because this is a very serious issue, but they have decided to deal with it the way they have dealt with it. Why did I say that? Those that are calling for an interim government, they want to create crisis in the country, and they want the DSS or security agencies to arrest them so that they can use that opportunity to create crisis in this country, but we will not allow them, and that is what the service has done. Secondly, the service has made Nigerians to know what is going on so that those that would want to join them know the implication of what they want to do. In any case, let me ask, what is the basis for interim government? We conducted election, and there is a winner, for instance, for presidential, for governors and all the like, there are winners. And in this same election, in this same process, there is procedure for anybody that is aggrieved, and it has been activated. So what is the basis for massive protests, naked protests, all manner of calls? I don't even know what they want. But certainly, like I said, it is a fantastic thing that the DSS did not go after them to arrest them so that their people can begin to protest all over the place and make the country ungovernable and make us to suffer the more. All I know is that, but at the end of the day, I know that they will not go scot-free. The DSS must still, and other security agencies for that matter, must still be putting their facts together and getting at those they need to get at the appropriate time. But what they have done now is the best thing for the country.
Okay.
But for interim government, I don't know where or under which constitution, under what arrangement. We are not in the military. I mean, I can't even understand. I don't understand. So it is baseless. But they should wash out, because we are coming to a level in democracy. You are responsible. You take responsibility for your actions and inactions. So it will come certainly.
Okay, well, you already played a fast one, but I was going to ask you, because in the statement released by the DSS yesterday, it said it had already identified these politicians, but it failed to name these politicians.
No, thank you very much. They will not do that for you. They will not do that. They will certainly not name them. I'm sure when you are to know their names is maybe when they appear in court. And don't forget, it's an investigation that is ongoing, is not yet conclusive, and so releasing some things might jeopardize. Their investigation. That is professional enough. The only thing I want to tell Nigerians is that we should support these agencies. If you have any credible intelligence about the activities of these persons, put politics aside, because anybody that want to do anything contrary now, he wants to destabilize our country. We have suffered enough, and the government is coming in that has heard what we have been going through, and certainly they should, in the next 1 year, we should be able to see changes in our country. If we don't see, another 4 years will give us opportunity to do the needful. Let me be specific now. If you ask me about the party called the Labour Party, I say they succeed, because the kind of massive vote they have is enough for them to believe that they have succeeded, and therefore there is no basis to call for any process whatsoever.
But unfortunately, in elections, the winner takes it all.
These are things we are supposed to work on as a country. These are things we are supposed, and the reason is because Nigerian politicians are professional politicians. They don't have, most of them don't have any other job to do. Go to the state, go to local government level. These data boys are there until we are able to deal with such situation, and it's because we monetize it. Look at what the local government chairman earns. Look at the kind of vote he controls. Look at what the governor controls. He controls all the resources of all local governments, of everybody there in his pocket. He does whatever he wants to do it, until we are able to make a change and disallow monetization of politics. That is what we will get. And that is why even people that are supposed to serve the country, somebody like me cannot come on board and say I want to be a politician. I want to play politics, because I don't believe in lies. I cannot play toggery, and I cannot bribe anybody. So until we develop that, what we have now is what we make do with.
Okay, now, for a set of people to go as far as calling for an interim government in a democracy that has been unbroken for over 20 years, that signals some sort of desperation, if you ask me. Now, this set of people have now been, the process has been interrupted. They've been identified according to the DSS. Don't you think they could go ahead and probably try and look for an alternative way to, go ahead with ensuring that the national peace that we enjoy right now is broken and there's crisis in the land? In that situation, what do you think the federal government should do?
Certainly, the security forces will not allow them, because if it becomes now, their activities have been exposed. Nigerians that they are calling on to support them have known their intention. Their intention is to make us to suffer more. So we have broken their ranks in terms of support. So at the end of the day, if it is time to arrest them, the kind of massive protest they are looking for, they will not get it, and will prosecute them successfully. The federal government must be working on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Adam Sabu, for being a part of the program this morning.
It's my pleasure to be with you this morning. God bless you.
Yeah. Okay, a lot has been said by the security expert. Now, we would also try, and because when I deal with lawyers, I always like to have different perspectives. It's always controversial sometimes when you want to get legal perspective to issues. But right now, what do you think should be done, legally speaking, Mr. Baisomoshua, to ensure that they do not go ahead and, start hatching other plans to truncate our democracy?
In fact, the security expert has even laid it bare. And as far as the law is concerned, as it is in the criminal code, section 37, say anybody that that have the propensity of leveling a war against the president or the governor, the state governor, has committed an offense of treasoning and is punishable by death. If that is the case, you discover that our survival in this country is tied to a government. And what type of government? Democracy. Government by the people, for the people, and of the people. And if that is the case, if anybody is trying to truncate this, the person is punishable, by that offense. I want to believe, as far as the law is there, if anybody goes against it, the security agents are there to do the needful. And again, the backdrop of what Mr. Zadok said.
Before we do,
I want to okay. Lay something here. I want to buttress something. Here. Okay. When Zadok said it is the behavior of the DSS, that they are behaving civil, they have to be careful, because there is going to be a transfer of power from one person to another. This thing has started even during Goodluck Jonathan time. When we were younger, we don't see DSS, we don't see NSO. Whatever they want to do, they might have. The only thing they do is you just see those people in court. But these days, they have to be civil, because the world is evolving and things are changing. Okay. So that is why they are trying to be civil.
Okay, we have Mr. Tolu Babaleye here, another legal practitioner, to help us make sense of this whole situation. Some people calling for an interim government and what the law says about this. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Babaleye.
Well, thank you, the people of Ondo State. Let me say hi to my brothers in the studio. Barrister Moshua and my other friend from PDP, who has decided to be.
It's no longer in PDP.
It's resigned.
It's on his way. It's on his way back to APC.
No. Okay, but even whether it's in APC or PDP, he has addressed the issue of justice this morning. I need to comment it, because the last time I knew him was in PDP. Well, on the issue of state, interim government is illegal. Even during military, I want to let us flash our mind back to the era of Babangida and Shoneka. When Shoneka was made the chairman of the interim government that time, you discover that Federal High Court pronounced that government, that arrangement as illegal. Even ordinary and under military, if it is illegal, can it be legal under where our constitution does not provide for it? Our constitution is very clear on how to change passing of leadership in this country. Assuming there is a stalemate where it is impossible for swearing in to come in, the law provides that the president of the Senate will take over if the vice president is not available. And in the absence of the president of the Senate, the speaker, chief justice of the federation will take over. But we are not in that kind of situation. We had an election that was monitored by the whole world, and it's not that been announced a winner as a match. So we don't know why people are calling for this. As far as I'm concerned, legally, these people have already committed treason. Because I watched a video in which they went to the national headquarters of Nigeria Army. They were protesting and calling on the Nigerian Army to come and take over. The attack is even not asking for national interim government. They are asking for military to come and sustain democracy so that they can take us 100 years backward. That is what these people are doing. You will discover that these are those who they are now applying that bad woman in the ceremony who said the baby should be cut into two. One should be given to her, the other one should be given to the other lady. No way that by the time you cut a baby, the baby will die. So what they want is to kill this democracy. And I love what the DSS did, because that is their first objective, is to protect the security of the nation. That's why they are called the secret police. They monitor all activities of everybody. You think that you have violated the law. At times they will call you and cancel you. They don't normally go for anybody, just like the police, the normal police. That will even on a mere election, police will come and go and grab somebody. But DSS don't behave like that. DSS will investigate. They will get to the root and the bottom of everything. So as it is, because they can even address the press. For democracy, I've never seen we have DSS who address the press and be telling us this is what they are doing, this is what is going to happen. In fact, we stand up for democracy. Because we must continue to enjoy this democracy. So we should not allow anybody to truncate this democracy. Okay. So what these people are doing is very illegal and it's unknown to law.
Okay, Mr. Babale, with the way these things are being orchestrated, the way it's playing out, do you perceive some sort of collusion between key players in the military and within the judiciary, together with the politicians involved? Do you sense any sort of complicity?
Well, the DSS has made everything there, and even call on the judiciary to be wary and be cautious, because there are some people who may seem to use the style of Atom Zeridi by getting a late night injunction to stop the swearing in. But the federal government has said it, even up to this morning, that nothing is going to stop the handing over, because that is the only thing that the constitution has been. Anything outside that is not constitutional. So we cannot rule out a collapse between these people in Labour Party and some elements in the military who are powermongers and who are ambitious. So we cannot rule it out. But as it is, I think the security agencies in Nigeria are out of the task. And they should up their game, because we don't want anything to truncate this democracy. And no, has not won any election. Somebody won in only 11 states. Only 11 states is now saying that they have won elections. And meanwhile, they have the KCD. And Tribunal is part of the election process. Until the final Tribunal is exhausted, we have not even finished, the election. Because Tribunal is part of the electoral process. As far as our position and the Electoral Act 2022 is concerned. So the people in the Tribunal, you see that they don't believe in the judiciary, and they are now calling for the interim government. So if they believe that if they believe that they can have justice in the court, why calling calling for interim national government for another election to hold?
Okay. Thank you very much for giving us your opinion on this issue, Mr. Babale. It's nice to have you on the program.
I'm very grateful. I have to come out of court
we really appreciate your time, Aisha. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so that's another perspective to this whole issue. Now, Zadok, everything has been said and done. So far on this table, there have been different opinions on this matter, but we still have an inauguration to do come the 29th of May. Do you sense that there could be some sort of disruption during the inauguration by any coloration or by any means?
We can't predict the future, but from what we have seen currently being done by some of the instigators of this, we may assume that they will try such. But I will say a few things. If this democracy is going to be truncated, you would either do it either militarily or civil. And the only way to do it civil will be for the judiciary to make a legal pronouncement that truncates it. I don't think there's any judge in Nigeria that will be willing to risk the entirety of his future to be the one, or the history of his ancestry and of his descendants, to be the one to make a pronouncement to truncate this democracy. And what the DSS has done is to pre-warn everybody as to the fact, and they've already said that they will be on the part of the president and the president-elect. We must be content with that. So I don't think there's any judge that will be willing to do that. But on the part of the military, I also know that our military over time has become more responsible in a democracy, So we won't have a situation where any military man that comes up now to try and do a coup when we were younger is going to face an opposition unprecedented. As a matter of fact, we'll most likely not find a place anywhere in the world where he can live. Gone are those days where you do those coups like the Babangidas, the Buharis, the others, and then you still find a place to live. You can't do that in Nigeria now and expect that you'll find a peaceful place. Nigerians will unite against such. So that's enough for them. But I must come back to the issue of those calling for this. I think they've lost the plot and they've damaged their future going forward as a political party. And I'm speaking to the Labour Party in this instance. There's a need for you to be circumspect when you say certain things. The comments credited to the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party should be condemned by the Labour Party. Except the Labour Party is saying that that is their own modus operandi and that's what they support. Otherwise, they should right to condemn it because the future, which is 2027, is just a few years down the line. And we're going to have another election. You are going to have the history of having set this precedent that people are going to remind you at that time. You need to build trust going forward. You need to let Nigerians feel assured that when power is ceded to you, that power will be used in such a way and manner as to be beneficial to the people. Outside of that, which they have not done, they've injured themselves. And they must go back to look at it again, look at those comments, look at the call, look at the acts instigating the military, and condemn them officially so that people, the citizens that followed them in this campaign, understand that that is not the will of the Labour Party. That's my comment.
Okay, before we wrap it up, we have less than 3 minutes to go. Barrister Moshiwa, what do you think has been the role of the social media in all of this, briefly?
I want to applaud the social media as far as this election is concerned because there has been some pre-warning, even from outside the country, and there has been some level of let me say, enlightenment about the role the social media, even the print media, what their role should be. These days, we see people. Those days, we used to see these cut and paste journalists that would just hear something and they put it in media. But these days, even if there are news that people just see through the blogs, what they normally do is to look at the source, and before they begin to, publish it. And when you look at this 2023,
that's not totally true. There's a lot of fake news.
There are quite a lot of it, but the professionals have taken advantage of it.
Because of our time, we have a program coming up after now. Let's quickly take what the DSS says about whoever is found being part of this plot to truncate the country's democracy. According to the DSS, investigation is still ongoing, and it has warned that an interim government would undermine the country's democracy, and everyone should desist from any act that is capable of upturning the peace that we enjoy in this country so far. And on the role of the media as well, the DSS has something to say. Stakeholders must be watchful as the plot thickens. Stakeholders, notably judicial authorities, the media, and the civil society, have been urged to be watchful and cautious to avoid being used as instruments to subvert peace and stability of the country. I want to thank you very much for coming on the program this morning. Mr. Zadok Akintoye, thank you so much for being here. Barrister Moshiwa,
my proven pleasure.
It's good to have you. My appreciation to Mr. Tolu Babale and Mr. Adams Abo as well for being part of the program. Next week, Thursday, we'll be here, God willing. Thank you for being part of it. I'm Olabisi Olani Oluwasegun. Good morning.